Tonight, when you close your eyes and drift off to sleep, you're entering the most vulnerable state a human can experience. Your consciousness fades. Your muscles shut down. Your brain begins doing things you have no control over. And sometimes, it betrays you. Sleep is supposed to be peaceful, restorative, safe. But for millions of people, sleep is where terror lives. Where your brain can trap you in your paralyzed body while demons watch from the corner. Where explosions detonate inside your skull. Where you wake up dozens of times, never actually waking. Where your body slowly forgets how to sleep at all, until it kills you. These aren't nightmares. Nightmares are just bad dreams. These are real neurological events. Physical phenomena that happen in the space between waking and sleeping. In that vulnerable transition where your brain is half conscious and anything can go wrong. Today, we're exploring 4 sleep phenomena that feel like death. First, sleep paralysis, when you wake up but your body won't move, and something evil is in the room with you. Then, exploding head syndrome, where your brain creates deafening explosions that make you think you're dying. Third, lucid dreaming gone wrong, when you become trapped in dreams you can't escape, waking up over and over without ever really waking. And finally, fatal familial insomnia, the genetic disease where you progressively lose the ability to sleep until your brain destroys itself and you die. By the end of this video, you'll never think of sleep the same way. You'll understand why closing your eyes is an act of faith. Why every night is a gamble with your own neurology. And tonight, when you try to fall asleep, you'll wonder if your brain will let you wake up. Let's begin with a phenomenon almost everyone has experienced. The one that makes you believe in demons. Chapter 1. Sleep paralysis, when your body becomes a prison. You wake up. Or you think you wake up. Your eyes are open. You can see your bedroom. The familiar shapes of furniture in the darkness. Everything looks normal. But you can't move. You try to lift your hand. Nothing. You try to turn your head. Nothing. You try to scream. Your mouth won't open. You can't even breathe deeply. Your chest feels compressed, like something is sitting on it. And then you see it. A shadow. A shape. Standing in the corner of your room. Watching you. You can't see its face, but you know it's looking at you. You can feel its presence. Malevolent. Ancient. Evil. It starts moving toward you. Slowly. Your paralysis is absolute. You're trapped in your own body, helpless, as this thing approaches your bed. You're trying to scream but no sound comes out. Trying to move but your limbs won't respond. The shadow reaches your bed. You feel the weight on your chest intensify. You can't breathe. It's sitting on you now. You can feel it. The presence is overwhelming. You're going to die. You're certain you're going to die. And then, suddenly, you can move. You gasp. Sit up. The shadow is gone. Your room is empty. Your heart is pounding so hard you think it might explode. You're drenched in sweat. Shaking. What you just experienced is called sleep paralysis. And it's one of the most terrifying things a human brain can create. Here's what's actually happening. When you enter REM sleep, the stage where you dream, your brain does something crucial. It paralyzes your body. This is called REM atonia. Your brain shuts down motor neurons so you don't physically act out your dreams. It's a safety mechanism. Without it, you'd be punching, kicking, running in your sleep. Sleep paralysis occurs when this mechanism glitches. You become conscious, you wake up, but the paralysis doesn't immediately turn off. Your mind is awake. Your body is still in REM atonia. You're trapped between sleep and wakefulness. That's the paralysis part. But what about the demons? The shadowy figures? The overwhelming sense of evil presence? That's where it gets truly disturbing. Your brain has a threat detection system that's hyperactive during vulnerable states. When you're paralyzed and can't defend yourself, this system goes into overdrive. It interprets ambiguous sensory information as threats. Shadows become entities. The pressure on your chest from restricted breathing becomes a malevolent weight. Your brain's pattern recognition system starts seeing faces and figures in the darkness. You're not imagining it. Your brain is genuinely creating these perceptions. The demon is as real to you as anything you see during waking life. Because perception is just your brain's interpretation of sensory data. And right now, your brain is interpreting everything as danger. Studies show that about 8% of people experience sleep paralysis regularly. But up to 40% of people will experience it at least once in their lifetime. It's more common than most people realize. It just doesn't get talked about because it sounds insane. I woke up and couldn't move and there was a demon in my room is not something you casually mention. But humans have been experiencing this for thousands of years. Every culture has a name for it. A mythology to explain it. In medieval Europe, they called it the old hag or night hag. A witch who sits on your chest and steals your breath. The word nightmare literally comes from this, mare being an Anglo-Saxon term for a demon that suffocates sleepers. In Newfoundland, it's called the old hag. In Chinese culture, it's ghost pressing on body. In Japanese, kanashibari, bound by metal. In Mexican and Mexican-American culture, se me subió el muerto, the dead person got on top of me. Every culture, same experience. A malevolent presence. An inability to move. A feeling of being crushed or suffocated. The specific demon changes based on cultural context, but the core experience is identical. Some researchers believe sleep paralysis explains many supernatural experiences throughout history. Alien abductions. Demonic possession. Ghostly visitations. Succubus and incubus encounters. People who report being abducted by aliens often describe waking paralyzed in their bed with figures standing over them. Gray beings with large eyes. The feeling of being probed or examined. Powerless to resist. That's sleep paralysis combined with the brain's modern cultural framework. In medieval times, the same experience was demons. In the 20th and 21st centuries, it's aliens. Same neurological event. Different interpretation. But understanding what causes sleep paralysis doesn't make it less terrifying when it's happening to you. People who experience sleep paralysis regularly describe variations. Some see shadow figures. Others see old women or men. Some see creatures that aren't quite human, elongated limbs, distorted faces, wrong proportions. Some don't see anything but feel presences. They know something is behind them. They can feel it breathing. They can sense its malevolence even though they can't turn their head to look. Others experience auditory hallucinations. Footsteps approaching their bed. Whispers. Screaming. Growling. Voices speaking languages they don't understand. And almost everyone describes the same overwhelming emotional component. Pure, primal terror. Not just fear. Not just anxiety. Existential dread. The certainty that something ancient and evil has invaded your space and you're completely helpless. Sleep paralysis is more likely to occur when you're sleep-deprived, sleeping in your back, under extreme stress, disrupting your sleep schedule, taking certain medications, experiencing trauma or PTSD, which means it often happens when you're already vulnerable. When your life is already difficult. When you're already struggling. And then your brain adds literal demons to the mix. There's no cure for sleep paralysis. No medication that prevents it completely. The only advice is, improve your sleep hygiene. Reduce stress. Don't sleep on your back. Try to maintain regular sleep schedules. But for people who experience it frequently, sometimes multiple times per week, that advice is useless. They're trapped in a cycle where their fear of sleep paralysis disrupts their sleep, which makes sleep paralysis more likely, which increases their fear. And the worst part? When it's happening, you can't tell yourself it's not real. Because in that moment, it is real. The demon is there. The presence is malevolent. Your paralysis is absolute. No amount of logical thinking can override what your brain is making you perceive. Sleep paralysis reveals something profound about consciousness. Your experience of reality is not direct perception. It's your brain's interpretation. And that interpretation can be wildly wrong. Your brain can create entities that don't exist. It can generate terror with no external cause. Every night when you close your eyes, you're trusting your brain to wake you up properly. To turn off the paralysis when you regain consciousness. To not trap you in your own body while it conjures demons from the shadows. Most nights, it works fine. But sometimes, it doesn't. And there's nothing you can do about it except endure it until your brain finally releases you. But sleep paralysis is just one way your brain can terrorize you during sleep transitions. There's another phenomenon. One that makes you think you're dying. One that creates sounds and sensations so violent, so overwhelming, that your first thought is that you're having a stroke or a heart attack or a brain aneurysm. Let's talk about exploding head syndrome. Chapter 2. Exploding head syndrome. When your brain creates deafening silence, you're drifting off to sleep. That peaceful moment where consciousness starts to dissolve. Your body is relaxing. Your thoughts are becoming dreamlike. You're almost asleep. And then, a deafening explosion erupts inside your head. So loud it feels like your skull is shattering. A massive crash. A gunshot. A bomb detonating. The sound is overwhelming, impossibly loud, coming from inside your own brain. You sit up, gasping. Heart pounding. Convinced you just heard the loudest sound of your life. Your ears should be ringing. Your head should be in agony. You might be dying. This could be a stroke. An aneurysm. A brain hemorrhage. But there's no pain. Your ears aren't ringing. And nobody else heard it. Because it wasn't real. It was entirely in your head. This is exploding head syndrome. And it's exactly as disturbing as it sounds. Exploding head syndrome is a parasomnia, a category of sleep disorders characterized by abnormal events during sleep. It occurs during the transition between wakefulness and sleep, usually as you're falling asleep, occasionally as you're waking up. What you experience is a sudden, loud noise. Different people hear different sounds: explosions, cymbals crashing, gunshots, doors slamming, electrical buzzing, screaming, thunder, glass shattering. The sound is perceived as deafeningly loud. Louder than anything in real life. And it seems to come from inside your head, or very close to your ears. Some people also see flashes of light. Bright, blinding flashes that accompany the sound. Others feel electrical sensations. Like a surge of electricity coursing through their brain or body. A zapping sensation that coincides with the auditory hallucination. It's terrifying. Because the first time it happens, you have no idea what's going on. Your immediate thought is that something catastrophic just occurred. A bomb went off. Someone broke into your house and slammed a door. You're having a medical emergency. Here's what's actually happening. During the transition to sleep, your brain goes through a complex shutdown sequence. Different neural networks deactivate in a specific order. Motor control systems shut down. Sensory processing changes. Consciousness gradually fades. Exploding head syndrome occurs when this shutdown process glitches. Instead of smoothly deactivating, neurons in your auditory cortex fire all at once. A massive, synchronized burst of electrical activity. Your brain interprets this as sound, extremely loud sound, even though your ears heard nothing. It's similar to what happens when you see stars after hitting your head. The impact triggers neurons in your visual cortex to fire randomly, and your brain interprets that as light. Exploding head syndrome is the auditory equivalent. Neurons fire without external stimulus, and your brain creates the experience of sound. The syndrome was first described medically in 1876, but it wasn't taken seriously for decades. Patients who reported it were often dismissed as anxious or mentally ill. The name exploding head syndrome wasn't coined until 1988, by British neurologist J.M.S. Pearce. It's only in the last few decades that researchers have recognized how common it actually is. Studies suggest that about 10 to 15% of people have experienced exploding head syndrome at least once. Some researchers think the number might be higher, but people don't report it because they're embarrassed or think they're going crazy. It's more common in women than men, people experiencing high stress, people who are sleep-deprived young adults and middle-aged adults, people who are withdrawing from certain medications, particularly antidepressants. For most people, it happens occasionally. Once every few months, or a few times a year. But for some, it happens multiple times per night. Every single time they try to fall asleep, an explosion erupts in their head. They become afraid to sleep because they know it's coming. And here's the cruelest part: there's no effective treatment. Because exploding head syndrome is harmless. It doesn't cause brain damage. It doesn't indicate any underlying disease. It's just neurons misfiring during sleep transitions. Annoying. Terrifying. But medically insignificant. So most doctors don't take it seriously. They might prescribe sleep aids. Suggest stress reduction. But there's no medication specifically for exploding head syndrome. No therapy that consistently works. You just have to live with it. Some people find that certain strategies reduce frequency, maintaining strict sleep schedules, reducing caffeine and alcohol, meditation before bed, ensuring the bedroom is completely dark and quiet, but for many people, nothing helps. The explosions keep happening. Night after night. And all they can do is remind themselves that it's not real. That they're not dying. That it's just their brain glitching. People who experience exploding head syndrome describe the psychological toll. The anticipatory anxiety. The fear of falling asleep because they know what's coming. The frustration of trying to explain it to people who don't understand. One person described it as being startled awake by an explosion that never happened, but your body reacts like it did. Your heart is racing, you're terrified, and you feel stupid because nothing actually occurred. Another said, the worst part isn't the sound. It's the moment after, when you're trying to figure out if you're having a stroke, if you should call 911, if you're dying, and then realizing it was just your brain misfiring again. Exploding head syndrome is a reminder of how much sensory experience is constructed by your brain, not detected by your sense organs. You didn't hear anything with your ears. Your auditory nerve didn't transmit any signal. Yet you heard a deafening explosion. Your brain created that experience out of nothing. Which raises an uncomfortable question. How much of what you hear, see, and feel every day is actually external reality, and how much is your brain's interpretation? How often is your brain adding details, filling in gaps, creating experiences that don't correspond to what's actually happening? With exploding head syndrome, the fabrication is obvious because there's no external source. But your brain is doing this kind of creative interpretation constantly. Usually, it aligns with reality closely enough that you don't notice. But sometimes, it doesn't. Every night when you try to fall asleep, you're hoping your brain's shutdown sequence goes smoothly. That neurons deactivate in the right order. That there are no glitches. No massive, synchronized firings that your brain interprets as catastrophic sound. Most nights, it works fine. But some nights, it doesn't. And when it doesn't, your brain makes you experience an explosion that never happened. A sound so loud you're convinced something terrible occurred. And there's nothing you can do except wait for it to pass and hope it doesn't happen again tomorrow night. But at least with exploding head syndrome, you know you're awake. You know it was a hallucination. Our next phenomenon is far more insidious. Because it traps you in a state where you can't tell what's real. Where you think you're waking up, over and over, but you never actually wake. Where the boundary between dream and reality dissolves completely. Let's talk about lucid dreaming gone wrong. Chapter 3. Lucid dreaming gone wrong. When you're trapped in dreams you control. Lucid dreaming sounds like a superpower. The ability to become conscious during dreams. To realize you're dreaming while the dream is happening. To control the narrative. Fly. Explore impossible worlds. Do anything you want without consequences. And for some people, it is extraordinary. A tool for creativity, self-exploration, even therapeutic healing. But for others, lucid dreaming becomes a prison. A trap where you're stuck in dreams you can't escape. Where you wake up dozens of times, but you never actually wake up. Where you lose the ability to tell what's real and what's dream. Where consciousness becomes a curse instead of a gift. This is lucid dreaming gone wrong. And it's more common than anyone wants to admit. Lucid dreaming occurs when you become aware you're dreaming without waking up. Normally during REM sleep, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for self-awareness and critical thinking, is largely deactivated. That's why dreams are so illogical and you don't question them. You accept flying cars and talking animals as perfectly normal. But in a lucid dream, parts of your prefrontal cortex remain or become active while you're still in REM sleep. You gain self-awareness. You realize this is a dream. And often, you gain some degree of control over the dream content. For experienced lucid dreamers, this is incredible. They practice techniques to induce lucidity. They use it for problem solving, artistic inspiration, or just having fun in a consequence-free environment. But lucidity can also spiral into nightmare scenarios. The most common problem is false awakenings. You have a dream. You become lucid. You decide you want to wake up. So you do. You open your eyes. You're in your bed. Everything looks normal. And then something feels wrong. A detail is off. The clock shows an impossible time. Your bedroom is slightly different. You realize, this isn't real. You're still dreaming. So you try to wake up again. You concentrate. You force your eyes open. And you do wake up. You're in your bed. Everything looks right this time. But then it happens again. Something is off. You're still dreaming. You wake up again. And again. And again. Some people report waking up dozens of times in a single night, each time thinking this is finally real, each time discovering they're still trapped in a dream. It's exhausting, disorienting, and terrifying. Because eventually, you start to question, Am I awake right now? Is this real? How would I even know? There's a scene in the movie Inception where the protagonist uses a spinning top to tell if he's dreaming. In reality, lucid dreamers do develop similar reality checks, small tests to determine if they're awake. Looking at text twice to see if it changes. Checking if light switches work. Trying to push a finger through their palm. But false awakenings can incorporate your reality checks into the dream. You test reality, and the dream passes the test. Because your brain is creating both the test and the result. The dream gives you the answer you're looking for, and you believe you're finally awake. Until you notice something else is wrong. Another problem: lucid nightmares. When you become conscious in a nightmare and realize you can't control it. You know you're dreaming. You're telling yourself this isn't real, wake up, just wake up. But you can't. And the nightmare continues. You're aware it's a dream, but that awareness doesn't give you control. You're just conscious of your own helplessness. Some people experience lucid dreams that blend with sleep paralysis. They become aware in their dream, try to wake up, and enter sleep paralysis while still partially in the dream state. So they're paralyzed in bed, aware they might still be dreaming, and the dream entities follow them into their bedroom. Shadow figures from their nightmares standing over them. Dream characters trying to interact with them. All while they're paralyzed and unsure if any of it is real. Then there's the time distortion problem. Time in dreams is subjective and unstable. While you're asleep for 8 hours, you might experience what feels like days, weeks, or even longer in dream time. For most dreams, you don't notice because you're not conscious enough to track time. But in lucid dreams, you're aware. And that awareness can make dream time feel interminable. People report lucid dreams that felt like they lasted years. They lived entire lifetimes. Had relationships, careers, grew old, all in a single night's sleep. When they finally woke up, they experienced profound disorientation. The life they lived in the dream felt as real as their waking life. They grieved for people who never existed. They missed places that were never real. There's a famous story shared in online lucid dreaming communities. A man described having a lucid dream where he lived for 10 years. He had a wife, children, a career. He was consciously aware the entire time but couldn't wake up. He tried repeatedly but failed. So he lived this dream life, fully conscious, for what felt like a decade. When he finally woke up, only 8 hours had passed. But he was devastated. His dream family was gone. The life he'd lived was erased. He mourned people who never existed. He struggled to readjust to his real life because his dream life felt equally real. He described it as psychological torture. Being conscious in a dream for that long, unable to escape, created genuine trauma. This raises disturbing questions about consciousness and reality. If you're conscious in a dream for what feels like 10 years, did you experience 10 years? Is subjective experience all that matters? If the dream felt real, was it real in any meaningful sense? And here's the truly unsettling part. How do you know your current life isn't a dream you've been trapped in? If you can experience years in a single night's sleep, what if your entire life is one extended dream and you've never actually woken up? This is the philosophical nightmare of lucid dreaming. Once you realize consciousness can exist in dream states that feel indistinguishable from reality, you lose certainty about which state you're currently in. People who experience problematic lucid dreaming describe the mental health impact. The exhaustion from false awakenings. The anxiety about falling asleep because they don't know if they'll be able to escape their dreams. The identity confusion from experiencing long subjective time spans in dreams. Some people actively try to avoid lucid dreaming after having bad experiences. They want to go back to regular, non-conscious dreaming where they don't have the burden of awareness. But once you've learned to lucid dream, it's difficult to unlearn. Your brain has created neural pathways for maintaining consciousness during REM sleep. Those pathways don't easily disappear. So you're stuck with this ability you no longer want. Lucid dreaming is usually portrayed as this amazing skill. A way to hack your consciousness and experience impossible things. And for many people, it is amazing. But it can also be a curse. A state where you're trapped between dreaming and waking, unable to fully inhabit either. Where you lose the restorative escape that normal dreaming provides. Where every night becomes a test of whether you can tell what's real. And the worst part is, there's no solution. You can't choose to stop lucid dreaming. You can only hope that your brain stops activating those awareness pathways during sleep. That you return to the blissful unconsciousness of normal dreaming. Most people sleep peacefully, unconscious, unaware. But some people are cursed with awareness. With consciousness that persists even in dreams. With the knowledge that they're trapped in a state they can't escape until their brain decides to release them. But false awakenings and lucid nightmares eventually end. You always wake up eventually. Our final phenomenon is different. Because with this condition, you don't wake up. You can't sleep. And you can't survive without sleep. So you die. Slowly. Consciously. While your brain destroys itself from exhaustion. Let's talk about fatal familial insomnia. Chapter 4. Fatal familial insomnia, when your body forgets how to sleep until it kills you. Imagine being tired. Exhausted. More exhausted than you've ever been. Your body is screaming for sleep. But when you lie down and close your eyes, nothing happens. You can't fall asleep. Not because of insomnia. Not because of anxiety. Your brain has simply forgotten how to enter sleep. The mechanism is broken. Permanently. Days pass. Then weeks. Then months. You don't sleep. Not even for a minute. Your body starts to deteriorate. Your mind starts to fragment. You hallucinate. You lose coordination. Your memories dissolve. Your personality changes. You're dying. Slowly. Consciously. And there's nothing anyone can do. This is fatal familial insomnia. The rarest, cruelest sleep disorder known to medicine. A genetic prion disease that progressively destroys your ability to sleep until it destroys you entirely. And it's 100% fatal. There is no cure. No treatment. No hope. Fatal familial insomnia, or FFI, is a prion disease. Prions are misfolded proteins that cause other proteins to misfold, creating a chain reaction of cellular damage. The most famous prion disease is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, or mad cow disease. FFI works similarly but targets a specific region of the brain, the thalamus. The thalamus is your brain's relay station. It processes sensory information, regulates consciousness, and controls sleep-wake cycles. When prions attack the thalamus, it slowly degenerates. And as it degenerates, you lose the ability to sleep. FFI is incredibly rare. Only about 70 families worldwide carry the genetic mutation that causes it. If you inherit the mutation, which is autosomal dominant, meaning you only need one copy, you'll develop the disease. Usually between ages 40 and 60. Sometimes earlier. Sometimes later. But if you have the gene, it's not a question of if. It's when. And once symptoms start, you have between 7 and 36 months to live. Most patients die within 18 months of onset. Fatal familial insomnia progresses through 4 distinct stages. Each one worse than the last. Stage 1. The first 4 months. It starts with mild insomnia. You have trouble falling asleep. You wake up frequently during the night. This seems normal at first. Lots of people have insomnia. But it progressively worsens. Soon you're sleeping only a few hours per night. Then less. Then almost not at all. You also start experiencing panic attacks. Phobias you never had before suddenly develop. Social anxiety. Fear of crowds. Fear of specific situations. Your personality starts to shift. You become paranoid, anxious, agitated. Doctors often misdiagnose this stage as a psychiatric condition. Depression. Anxiety disorder. They prescribe sleeping pills, antidepressants. Nothing works. The insomnia continues worsening.